Hi, good morning or good evening, everyone. Yes, in this section, we are going to look into that extending of this users management activity, which we had it in the last section. So that's about here we see the some demonstrations, like how to create a users or how do we manage that users and groups activities point of view. Yes, how to create a groups or how do we associate that users with the groups. Yeah, these are all some more activities we are learning in this section. We are going to do that. Yeah, before that, in the last section, if we just conclude that we were understanding some important files where all the users' information that will be stored. Yes, that's about within that's etc folder. So we have the password file, and as well as one more the shadow file, and another like groups related information, that is a group file. And another one is which are understanding etc login definitions file. So this is the default user IDs or system user account IDs. That's all that information will be having. Yeah, so they're all files we are understanding as important. The files of the user management point of view. Yes, if you are creating user or if you are updating that user or passwords, if you are resetting that, or you are creating a groups or assigning that users to the groups. Yes, backend where that complete information that is storing this is. Yes, these are all some important files from the users management. And as we are understanding, and especially the password file and each property also which are looking about it. Yes, the user user information. Each line has one user account ID, and in that this user, so how do you identify that he is the normal user or he is that account is a system account or app account. Yes, we are understanding by using that the type of the shell which has been assigned, we can identify that he is the normal user, or is it no login user. No login user is the system account ID, user IDs, which can be used to manage the process, but we don't use it those accounts to log into the systems. Yeah, and properties also the username and then the password in encrypted, but actually the passwords which will be showed in shadow file. Yes, again, a password is having that some specific properties like a password expired dates, the minimum duration that's to reset the passwords, or warning before going to inactivating of that or expiring the passwords. Yes, all the password properties that will be stored in etc shadow. But in etc password file, yes, user information, user ID, that user is belong to the which group, that group ID, and user comment information, user home information, and as well as finally user shell information. Yeah, that's about password file, shadow file. But instead of looking at the properties of password in the etc shadow, we were understanding that use the change command and know about that the properties of that user. That is a password expires information point of view, inactive point of view, account expires point of view. Yeah, minimum number of days between. Yes, the password fields. Yes, we can look into that in the shadow file, but instead of that, that user and with the change command, you can get it that the values of this or the properties of it. And one more file, login definitions. It contains like a user IDs, on the starting point of view, and what is the minimum, maximum that can be used, that can be customized. And finally, etc group. Yes, etc group file contains that the group's information. Yes, it is having the information of the group IDs, and that group is belong to that which users. Suppose if you just check it about it vagrant, the vagrant user ID is vagrant user point of user ID is 1000. And this vagrant user, which group, what is the primary group of that user is? Yes, that is 1000. Yes, here it is managing that UID, I mean that is group IDs. But here if we check it like, yes, let me go for grepper. So what is the vagrant group ID? Vagrant user is having that 1000 group ID. But what is that 1000? Yes, that is the vagrant is the group, and which is having that the ID is 1000, and this vagrant group is assigned to thus this user. Yes, now one user is having that, or one user is belong to this vagrant group. Yeah, so like this, the group file, password file, shadow file, and as well as the login definition files. Yes, they're all important files which are helping that the users management point of view. Yeah, now what we do this is we go for understanding how to create a users, and while creating users, what are the properties we have. And as like we are understanding one more point also, how do we know that that user related which group he belongs to that? If you just run that groups, yes, that user is belong to that which groups. Or if you'd like to check it for the particular user group, suppose root user, which group he belongs to that? Yes, the root user is belong to that root group. Yeah, groups is also another command. Yeah, they're all points we are understanding. And yeah, so like a files point of view, user properties, password point, sorry, password properties, yes, they're all points we had it that. Then now let's look into that, how to create a users and properties, deleting and groups adding. Yeah, these some concepts. Yes, we look into that. This one, these commands we didn't discuss that, but how to create a users? We have that user add command, modification point of user mod, deletion point of user del, like a groups management. Yes, let's look into that. How to create a user and how to work with the users. What is the command we are going to talk with this is to create a user, that is useradd. And if you check it this manual of that useradd command, now we'll get it some more information. Yes, like a properties or options, useradd, what is the purpose of this? Yes, create a new user or update the default new user information. But the syntax is, if you just observe that, yes, useradd is having that with options, and finally login user ID we can pass it that, and a description, and there are all the properties, some properties, like if you like to know that, yes, that's the properties also which has been given in the manual. Yeah, so now let's go for creating. I'm going to creating one user, but to create a user, yes, the sudo permissions required. So I'm just creating user add with RNS tech 1. So he's a user, I'm just creating. So far that's not available, right? Yeah, I'm not passing that's any other fields. We'll come back one by one, some other fields later. Yes, RNS tech 1. Yes, the user has been created or not. Yeah, how to check it that user is available or not? Yes, I can go for that, checking about it within the file, that is etc password file. Yes, the password file contains that the any user you are creating, that will be stored here. Yes, now the user has been created, RNS tech 1. But we didn't set the password, but it is having the some like the password X, like I mean encrypted notation. And what is the ID it is created? Yes, 1001. Before vagrant it was having 1001, and next ID it has been assigned user ID for this user 1001. But which group it has been assigned? Yes, it is created one group also for this user with the same same name, that is a group name, and which is having this 1001. And where that user home directory, and it is having within home directory. Now it has been created RNS tech 1, that user related one home directory has been created. And what is the default shell it is assigned is, that is bin bash. Yeah, so I didn't define any properties, just I use that user add and username, and default the username I mean user home directory has been assigned. It is assigned this one UID, UID, UID. If we check it that, if you go and back this, and if you check it this in etc, the group Let me take it last some 5 lines. Yeah, now you see this is like 1001 is the group ID and group name is RNS-1. Now this user is belong to that RNS-1. Now if you check it like groups RNS-1 user. Yes, now he is belong to that RNS-1 group because we didn't specify while creating user which group he belongs to. That's right. So if you don't specify that, the user ID whatever we are using to create it with the same user ID, it is going to create a group ID also, and it is assigned in this group ID. Yes, now this user is belong to that. This is a primary group. Yeah, so that's about understanding with the default properties user whenever we create it, and that user information has been updated. But has it been assigned the password for this user? Have we assigned that password for this user? Okay, if you check it, let me check it. That's in etc shadow also. I'm just searching for that user. Yes, RNS-1 user has been added in the shadow file also. There's a password file also with some default properties. But you see that it is having that the exclamatory mark. As yesterday we were mentioning exclamatory mark. If you have, that means that user he cannot log in with the password. So we didn't set this the password. But how I can set the password to the user? User creation is user add. But while creating user adding, do you have this password setting up that option? No. User add is helping just to create user, but password if you'd like to set for that user, you need to go for that the password command, and which user do you want to set that username. Then we can do this setting up the password. Now it is asking us what is the password of it. Yes, I'm just setting about the some welcome password and confirm the password. Yes, now all authentication tokens updated successfully. Now if I check it again, the etc shadow file, now you see this it is having something like exclamatory, some like hash code representation which I have, that is encrypted format. But before it was having exclamatory it is there is nothing but that user he cannot log in with the password, it doesn't accept it. But after setting the password, yes, now it is the password whatever we have set up that it has been stored in this shadow file in encrypted format. Yeah, so that's the default behavior. Just we have created a user without giving any properties. The user name itself is a group, it is a created group, it has been added, user it has been added, user ID is generated, group ID is generated, and home directory has been set up. That's the default location, that is a /home. In the /home, that's user home directory has been created. And one more point in this home directory, that's user home directory. Which one is that? RNS-1. So he doesn't have, this user is not having that. Yes, now you see this in this user home directory, it is created some files also, bash logout file, bash rc, bash profile. Yes, some profiles related default files also it is created where we didn't create it explicitly. So user add command, the whenever we run that the user add command, it is taking care of that setting up all the properties. But how it is setting up that all these properties is, so where all these defaults has been defined is, if you go to that etc default user add, yes, this file contains, yeah, where that home directory is going to create for that user. And initially like it is inactive, and expiry, yes, we don't have the same expire options. Shell, which type of the shell it is going to assign, you see this like it has been assigned bin bash, right? Yes, bin bash, and it is taking us all the files from etc scale. Suppose now we have bash logout, bash profile, bash rc, but where all these files we got it? Now if you check it, this default directory skull, directory, we have some files like bash logout, bash profile, bash rc. The same files, it has been copied while creating this user rns-1. It has been copied to that user home directory. That is skeleton of that the user. Yes, user you are creating is nothing but, so these are all the default files that is getting created, and where that all the default files are located, that is in the etc skel, and from this folder it is just copying to that user home directory, and where that user home directory is creating /home, and what is the default shell it is going to assign, that bin bash. Yes, this is the like whenever we are running useradd command, it is reading this file and it is setting up the complete user related the properties, and it is storing that complete user information in etc password file. Yeah, so that is the main the understanding the default behavior of that user. Now let me go for creating one more user with some more options. Is what are the options we have? Yes, I'm going to run this once again, the user add command, but with some more properties. We look into that. What are the properties we have? This is like if you'd like to create like a default a directory of the user. Yes, -m is that one important attribute or parameter, which is going to helpful. Whatever the user account you are creating, that's going to helpful to create a default directory of that user. Or if you have this any custom directory, I don't want that in the /home about this user home, but I would like to define that the custom home directory, we have this -d option. -d, if I specify the some opt and rns-2, that means now this user, the whatever the current user rns-2 we are going to create it, that user home directory, that would be in the opt rns-2. But if I don't specify the -d, by default it is in /home rns-2. Yeah, we can customize that home directories, or we can specify this default home directory that is required to create it or not. And another option which we have, this is comment option. The comment, how do we add that comment information or user information is -c, then you can add it. He is like some information, something DevOps engineer. Yeah, if you'd like to add that any information of that user, yes, we can use it -c. That is one more property. And if you'd like to set up that the particular type of the shell, yeah, the default shell bin bash, it is going to use it, right? The bin bash. But if you'd like to set up that the shell like Bourne shell, C shell, any specific shell, then we have what is the one more property which we have is -s option, and we can use it and we can set that to the type of the shell which is required. And then this user, if you'd like to set up this the particular group, yeah, group wise, as we are saying this, we can one user is belong to that one primary group, but maybe the same user can belong to that other groups as a secondary groups. Yeah, if you'd like to assign this which group is the primary group and the secondary group, okay, those properties I'll talk with this later. -small g -cap c, we have the some options, yes, which we can use it, that those properties I will use it those properties in user modification section. For the timing, let me go for the creating the default group. Yeah, there are also more properties. -m that is default directory to create it, -d the custom home directories to define it, -c comments information if you would like to add it, any information of that user, -es if you have this any specific type of the shell to define it, as which shell he has to use it. And finally, the username, you can define that the rns-2. I'm just going to create rns-2. Now if you verify the properties of cat etc the password, now you see this, yes, rns-2 has been created with this id, with this group id, and this is a comment which has been added, and this is the user home directory. Normally user home directory within the /home /home, that with user id, but here it has been created what we have specified -d, and custom directory we have specified custom home directory. Now it has been assigned as custom home directory for that user. And the type of the shell, what is the shell we have assigned? Bin bash. Suppose if you don't want to log in this user to the shell, then you can assign that as bin no login. If I assign this type of the shell, then this user he cannot log in it. Yeah, so that's about these are all some more properties. User add without properties, user add if you have some custom home directories and comments if you'd like to add it, type of the shell if you'd like to define it, and as well as yeah, the no login user, login user. Yeah, these are all some important properties which we can use it while creating a user. So now we have the two users. One is RNS-Tech1 user and second one is RNS-Tech2 user. RNS-Tech2 user, we didn't set the password. RNS-Tech1 user, we were setting the password, right? Can I switch to that RNS-Tech1 user? Now we have logged in as vagrant user. Can I switch to that RNS-Tech1 user? How I can switch it? One user to another user? Yes, what is the command? Su, that is switch user. And username, if you just pass it, RNS-Tech1. Now it is asking the password. What was the password we were setting? That's you can enter the password. Yes. Now I have logged in as RNS-Tech1 user. And if I just enter it ID is going to helpful, right? Which user ID you are using? Yes. Now which user ID we have logged in? RNS-Tech1 user. And this is the group user ID of this user. And this user is belong to the which group? RNS-Tech1. What is the group ID of that? 1001. And what are the other groups? But he is belong to the only one groups. This is the primary group. And if this user is belong to that any other secondary groups, yes, secondary groups also it is helping. But here he is belong to that only one group, that is RNS-Tech1 user. Yeah, we can switch that one user to another also. But how do you switch that one user to another one is? That is su command is going to help with that. Su and username. But if I would like to know, let me exit here. And I would like to switch to that RNS-Tech user. Just we have created RNS-Tech, right? RNS-Tech user. Yeah, this user I would like to switch it. And password. Have we set the password? No, we didn't set that password, right? The password, without setting the password, you cannot do that. But can I do that with sudo? Sudo. Yeah, sudo is a super user. Super user, with the super user, you can run all the commands. Sudo su rns-tech2. Yes, now it is not prompting for the password. Yes, I am able to switch to the RNS-Tech user. RNS-Tech2 user. Yeah, with a normal user, with the password prompting and password if you have, you can do that. But now we have run with the super user privileges. That means sudo is you are using is nothing but almost you are using root user. With the sudo, and I am switching to this user. Yes, now I have switched to the RNS-Tech2 user. Even we didn't set the password for the RNS-Tech2. And this RNS-Tech2 user, bin bash user, right? Bin bash user. That's why we are able to switch it. Now what I do that, I modify this user RNS-Tech2 user to the sbin no login user. Let me exit and let me do one small activity. What is that? Sudo. I'm changing that user. How to change the properties of that user is usermod command modification. But what I would like to modify it? Yes, if you'd like to modify the comment, yes, you can use the comment. Yes, I'm just changing that I'm just changing to that engineer. Before it was there, DevOps engineer. I'm just changing that just to understand some the properties, how to change that of the user. So what is the command we are using now here? User mod. Okay. And I would like to change the shell also. Now he is able to log in, right, with the bin bash shell. But there is a requirement. Now this RNS-tech2 user, he cannot log into the shells. Then what is the type of the shell we need to set up that? Has been no login, we need to set up that. That means we are changing, before it was bin bash, now we are changing to that has been no login. And which user we are doing that? RNS-tech2, this is user ID. Yes, now let me change the properties. Yes, I have done the changes. And let's verify the properties within the etc. The password file, if I verify. Yes, now that user, yes, we have changed the comment. How do we change the properties of that user? Usermod. Directories you can change it, and user IDs you can change it. Groups we can change it. Groups I'll come back. Groups I am not talking that so far. Still user properties we are talking that other than groups. Yeah, the shells we can change it that, and user home directories we can change it of that user. Now if I try to switch to this, now I'm using super user switching to this RNS-tech2. Now what it is saying that this account is currently not available. That means it is not accepting that to log into the shell, because now this RNS-tech2 user, you cannot use it as a login user, because we have defined that the type of the shell as a no login. So if you assign that to any user account as a no login, the type of the shell, then that user he cannot log into the system. Now I'll switch it that once again. Let me go back to that user mod command. I'm going to change to this one to bin bash. And now let me run it that. Now yes, he is able to log into that RNS-tech2. Yes, now the current user is RNS-tech2 user. Yeah, like that, user add, user modify, user add command to add that the users, and user mod, existing user properties to change it. That is a shell point of view, home directories point of view, comments point of view, user IDs point of view, groups point of view. Yes, we can use it, this user add, user modify commands. And if I would like to delete that user, okay, delete, I'll come back later. Okay, let me use it, this RNS-tech1 user and RNS-tech2 user, these two users. Now I'll do that some more operations on the groups. Once the groups operations done, then I'll come back to delete these users. Now let me create groups. Now so far these two users, now this RNS-tech2 user is belong to that RNS-tech2 group itself. And RNS-tech1 user is belong to that. The group is also RNS-tech1. But we have this like a developers group and DevOps engineers group. So RNS-tech1 user is belong to that developers team, and RNS-tech2 user is belong to that DevOps engineers group. Then how do we assign it? The first of all, do we have the groups? Do you have those groups? No, we don't have the groups. That is developer group and DevOps group we don't have. So first we need to create a groups. But how do I create a groups? Yeah, user add, that is users adding now like group add to create a groups. Yes, which group does do you want to create it? That a group name you can specify that. The group add like developer. But we are trying to create that by using that RNS-tech2, right? Yeah, so with the great power comes great responsibility. So we don't want to use that, because RNS-tech2 user is not the super user. You cannot, even if you try to use the sudo also, with RNS-tech2 user you are running that sudo, it is not accepting that. So he's not the sudo user. But we have vagrant user is the sudo user, right? Vagrant user we can use it. Now I just change it to the vagrant. I'm going to run that sudo. group add developer. Yes. Now if I check it that etc the group file, yes, we got it, the developer group. Like that, let me create it, but we didn't assign to any user. We didn't assign to any user. It just created the developer. Like that, let me create DevOps also. Yeah, so these two groups we have created, developer and DevOps. Now RNS Tech one user, groups of RNS Tech one. He's belong to that which group? RNS Tech one group. Now, but RNS Tech one is belong to that developer group, and RNS Tech two is DevOps group. How do we assign this, or how do you change it? Now, assigning that RNS Tech one user to the developer group. Group is already there. Group, I mean, before going to assign that any user to the groups, group must be exist. That is important. If the group is not there, but you are assigning that user to the group, it is going to get failure. But we have created the groups. But how I can assign RNS Tech one to the developer group, and he is like a primary group. Yeah, the sudo. So we can change the properties of the user, right? The properties of that user, that is user mod. We are changing that user, the mod. Which group does do you want us in that? Group is developer, and which user? RNS Tech 1. Yes, RNS Tech 1. Now we are going to assign to the developer group. But how do I assign this group is -small g. -small g in the useradd, usermod, the commands, that property is helping to assign the primary group to the user. Now if I just run it, and if I verify groups of RNS Tech 1. Now RNS Tech 1 is belong to the which group? Developer group. Like that, if I would like to assign this RNS Tech 2 to the DevOps group, how do I assign it? Yes, username is RNS Tech 2. And a primary group, how do I assign it? -small g and DevOps. Suppose if I give the DevOps one something. So DevOps one group does not exist. That means before going to assign any user to the group must be exist. That is important. We don't have this any DevOps one, we have the DevOps. Yes, now you can check that groups of RNS Tech 2. Yes, now this RNS Tech 2 user belong to that DevOps. Yeah, primary group, how do I assign to that user is -g and group name. The useradd command or usermod command. That is modification. The one more point what we have is, suppose RNS Tech 1 user, now he is belong to the developer is the primary group, but he is belong to that as a secondary to the DevOps group. Secondary group is DevOps. Can we have one user belong to the multiple groups? Yes, he can. Suppose if you join to that organization and you are the technical team, yes, main you are joined as a technical group, but within the technical, like after the technical, maybe you will be having the different groups. You are the member in those groups also, right? Not only just one group, but you are the primary group is technical team, but maybe sometimes yes, you are going to work for us like testing related activities or some kind of the billion release, the teams required to add it, permissions point of view, or operations related. Activities point of view, you need to have the permissions. Yeah, one user can belong to the multiple groups, but one primary and the remaining all are secondary. Like this, now RNS Tech 1 user, we are saying that primary he is belong to the developer, and as well as he belongs to that DevOps team also. but as a secondary. But how do I send that secondary group to the user? Yeah, again modifying that. I'm just going to modify that user mod. So secondary group, how do you add it is the caps G. The small g is for that's primary group, and the secondary group, if you like to add it, the small g, I'm sorry, caps G. And then which group? DevOps. And which user? RNSTech1. Now if I run this, and if I check it, ID of RNSTech1, ID of RNSTech1 user, he's belong to the primary group is developer, and he's belong to that other groups also as a developer and DevOps group also. But primary group is developer, but secondary group is DevOps. Like that, one user we can add it to multiple groups. Yeah, the small g that is for the primary group, and caps G that is for small g that is for primary group, and caps G that is for secondary groups to add it. Yeah, that's about user add and group add commands. Groups deletion, if you like to delete it, yes, you can delete it, and you can change it the group names. That is a group, suppose group names I need to change it. Suppose here, how do you modify that now? Here a developer is there, but instead of the developer, I would like to change this group name as group name changes. That is modifying the group name. Something like testing. How do we change it to this developer group to that testing? Yeah, sudo group mod -n, name of that is testing, and which group does do you want to mod it? Developer. Yes, now if you check it, ID of RNSTech1, ID of RNSTech1, now before it was developer, right? Now it has been changed that the group name as testing. Yeah, how to change the group name? That is group mod. How to add the group add, but group wise we don't see this much properties. Like useradd, usermod, we have hyphen small g, hyphen caps G, hyphen s, hyphen t, hyphen m, hyphen c. But group changes point of view, directly you can use it group mod, and hyphen n, that is name. What is the name do you want to set that, and to which group that do you want to set up that? Yeah, that's about user add, user mod, group add, group modification, and finally deleting that users. We'll talk about that. Yeah, we have the two users, RNSTech1 and RNSTech2, two users. How I can delete these two users? Yeah, so we have this like one more command, userdel, user add, user mod, user del. Del is for deletion, like group add, group mod, group del. Del is for deleting the groups, group del, user del, and username. I'm just going to delete that RNSTech2 user. Yes, if I delete this group RNSTech2 not removed because it is not the primary group of user RNSTech2. Yeah, fine. Like RNSTech2, so he's belong to, what is the primary group he's belong to? That is RNSTech2, right? Like group RNSTech2. Yes, now the user has been deleted. It was just giving warning message, but the user has been deleted. Now if I check it, that cat in etc the password file, and if I grep for RNSTech2 user, yes, there is no user. The user has been deleted. But the point, where do we have that user home directory of this? If you remember that we were creating in opt folder, right? ls-l the opt. Yeah, user home directory still it is there, right? If you just observe that I have deleted the user, but user home directory still it is there. User home directory is not deleted, but user entry from the database, it has been deleted. Yeah, if I just use it userdel command, and with username, it is just deleting that user entry from the etc password file. That means from the database, it is just removing that user, but still that user home directory is still available and all the files are available. Now if you don't need that even this home directory also, then you need to go back to here and you need to manually delete the directory, user home directory. But my requirement is we need to delete the user, and as well as home directory also we don't need that. We want to delete the complete reference of that user from the system. Then how do you do that? Suppose RNS tech 1 point of view, ls-l, where that RNS home directory? Yes, this is the one, right? Yeah, so he's not having the permission anyway. Yeah, so this is a user home directory. Now I don't need this user. I would like to delete it. Normally how to do delete it? User, sudo userdel find and user account RNS tech 1. But I would like to delete home directory also. Then what is the option we can use? It is -r. So if you don't give the -r, the home directory still that is will be there, but only the entry from the database, that user account, will be deleted, but home directory still exist. But if we don't want that home directory also, then use it the -r also. Now if you check it ls-l home, now you don't see this RNS tech 1. Yeah, that is user del command. Use a del command that is going to helpful to delete that user, but -r with the complete home directory, it is going to cleaning up that. Yeah, so that's about the commands like which we have: the user add, user del, user mod, group add, group del group del direct command, that's you can try it. And a group modification, yes, if you like to change the names of the groups, yes, you can use it that command. And change command and the files of that, that is password file, shadow file, group file, etc login definitions file, etc default user add command add file, and we have like etc scale one more folder, the default files of the user home directory that will be copied during user creation time. Yeah, so these are all points. Just try to get it back that from this concept as working. But still we have some more points like here RNS tech 1 or 2 users, these users are not pseudo users, but vagrant user pseudo user, right? So with vagrant, if I run it with the sudo, I'm able to run it, but RNS tech 1 or 2, whenever we are running with the sudo, it was not accepting, because those users are not pseudo users. That means not the, so we didn't provide that any super user privileges. But how do we create the users with the super user privileges? How do we assign it? Yes, we have one group, adding that user to the group. That's I will talk it in the next section. Yeah, so that's all from this section. Yeah, thank you.